Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the February 2024 meeting of the Orange Town Planning and Zoning Commission. I am Commissioner Ozzie Parenti.
Tom Tarenti.
Paul Kaplan.
Kevin Cornell.
Judy Smith.
Jack Demerjen, zoning administrator.
All right, good. Everybody's here. Let's get right to our agenda. First item is a review of the minutes from the February 6, 2024 meeting. Has everyone had a chance to look those over?
No comments.
I have no comments on the minutes, so I'm ready to take a motion to approve if,
I'll make a motion, we approve the minutes from February 6, 2024 meeting.
all right? We have a
Second.
second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay, the minutes are all set. All right, next thing on our agenda is old business. Anything that anybody wants to bring up under that topic? All right. Which we, yeah,
How long do you think before Cherry Hill's going to finish up on Fire Lake?
I know they're looking to get their COs pretty soon. I think they have a couple punch list items with the building and fire departments. I know they've already started leasing,
Yeah.
so they have prices out and everything, so pretty soon, I would think. Thank you.
all right. Anything else under old business? Okay, then, under new business, we have two items to talk about. One's the Plan of Conservation and Development revision discussion, and secondly, we have a matter to discuss regarding 217 Derby Avenue. Is somebody willing to make a motion that we flip those two items?
So moved.
Just, I don't want to,
Yeah.
a lot of people here for,
Second.
all right, it's been a motion, it's been seconded.
Yep.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. So then let's talk about 217 Derby Avenue. It's on our agenda. Jack, you want to give us a little background?
Sure. So this has been a long-standing issue for the neighbors, obviously, in this area. Last week, Michael Papa, one of the members here, residents in the area, as well as a few others who I think I see out here today as well. Hi, they stopped by my office last week and brought up a judgment from the court from 1991, and were inquiring as for the enforcement of that judgment.
A judgment from 1991?
Correct.
I've been on the board for,
It
How long?
predates us.
yeah. This is the first I'm hearing about anything like this.
It's for, about that judgment, I mean, I think that judgment is gonna predate anyone.
Okay.
Yeah.
The issue is not new. I think the neighbors can certainly attest to that. So it was brought to me last week, and before, obviously, I do anything with a judgment from that long ago, I wanted to sit down with the town attorney and see if that would still be something that we would be acting on. He advised me that there's a statute of limitations for these things, and that this would not be something the town would be enforcing because that statute of limitations has ended. I believe it was 20 years, he told me.
Well,
So,
even if it's not enforceable per se, it's a snapshot of an existing non-conforming use and what it was 30 years ago. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Let's
Yeah.
start from the beginning.
So
First of all, who?
217 Derby
owns-
Avenue is Mike's Garage. Mike Clement is the owner. I'm sure everyone's familiar with it. Before you turn down to go to the middle school, it's the garage right on 34. So after speaking to Vinny about that judgment, I also learned that in November of last year, there was a meeting between the residents in this area and the owner of this business. And it was facilitated by the town attorney, by Vin. I was not there. I really didn't know anything about it until last week. After hearing that, I guess the consensus of that meeting was to reconvene this year, early this year, sometime in January or February. That did not happen. I know Vinny was facilitating it. I'm not sure if he didn't facilitate it or, forgot, whatever you want to call it.
It didn't happen.
Didn't happen. So I said, well, I'd be happy to facilitate another meeting. Maybe I'll send Mike a letter and say, I know this was discussed in November. Let's come back and let's make some progress here.
Mike,
Mike
Clement's
Clement,
the
I'm
owner.
sorry, yeah, I should be more specific, the business owner. So that was really my understanding of it as of last week, and that was late last week as it was. I spoke with Mr. Papa, who I believe is the representative of this group of neighbors, who said today that they're not interested in sitting down with him again and just want enforcement action.
Well,
What's the issue?
yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, what's the complaint? What
The
are-
main issue here is blight, and I think the neighbors are upset with the scope. Well, oh, right, I'm sure they're gonna have a different answer than me, I mean, they're the ones who live there. As I said, the court order on my end, I was advised by my town attorney, we're not gonna be touching that, so I defer to my town
Do
attorney.
you
on
know
that.
what was in the court order?
It was the scope of the business here. So it went into detail about what is allowed on the property, how many cars, the level of service, things of that nature, the overall scope of this non-conforming
Sort
use
of
here.
That would give the intensity of the use,
It-
limit the
yes.
intensity of the use.
Yep, exactly.
So any change in that non-conforming use, we could measure against?
Well, that's,
What was going
again,
on there?
Vinnie says no. Vinnie says that's not the
Well,
case.
I'm not saying we could necessarily enforce the judgment, but we could
use it.
we could evaluate what's going on there now by comparing it to
Right,
what was
yes.
happening then.
Yeah, exactly.
Because the idea being that if it's a non-conforming use, you're not supposed to enlarge.
Exactly, yes.
Vinnie,
Yep.
Vinnie knew, it wasn't a money judgment. Vinnie knew what the scope of this was, because he
Vinnie's-
facilitated
He's
this.
been aware of it.
And it's only
well,
good for 20 years?
Like I said, that's what he advised me.
Right.
You know, I can't,
You think 30?
30 was when it was 91. so-
No, but he said it's statute of limitations for
statute of
20.
limitations says it kicks in after
But
20
it's
years.
a use and nothing, okay.
Not- not
We'll
that-
find out.
Can verify.
Right,
Yeah.
not that the non-conforming use suddenly becomes conforming, it's that judgment, he advised me, was enforceable for 20 years. You know, that's 2011. I know my predecessor had written violations for this property multiple times beforehand. Didn't really follow through on a lot of them, which I think is the source of our issues today.
I don't remember hearing about this.
Well,
Do you?
no, I mean, I
Yeah,
think,
okay.
I mean, the first I was away last week, so I
You know,
missed
we
it.
didn't,
No,
this,
no,
yeah,
but
this
when
wasn't
Paul
anything that
Denise
we,
was here.
But
I'm talking like years and years and years ago.
Yeah, I mean, I don't
Right,
think I was on, well, 1991, no, I wasn't on the commission then.
right, so the.
I mean,
the-
I'm getting older, but.
Right, so the neighbors have come forward, last week they reached out to me, and I was informed of all of this, the meeting that happened, you know, I was advised by the town attorney that judgment is not something the town is gonna be enforcing, so I defer to him on that. And I offered to facilitate that second meeting, I don't think that's the interest of the group of neighbors anymore,
But-
they're after an enforcement action.
Well, and my sense is you really haven't had a chance to study the whole situation.
No, I mean, I was aware of the situation, and I had been reached out in the neighbors in the past, and the property owner has been told to clean it up, and, you know, he has here and there, but Band-Aid on, you know, on a wound that needs surgery. So, with where we're at today, if they don't wanna work, you know, with the property owner, or they think they're, you know, they're not gonna see the fruits of their labor there, then an enforcement action would be needed, which the property owner can respond to that action however he sees fit. He can either come into compliance, he can ignore it altogether, and the town will, you know, pursue that and go to court.
We're gonna I'd like to talk to the town attorney about it
Absolutely,
first.
yeah. It's,
'Cause
the-
it- will the
it is the
town-
discretion of the enforcement official and the town attorney.
Right, okay. all
Correct.
right.
That's
Yeah, I mean,
the bottom line there.
That's a good point. I mean, you know, we don't have enforcement jurisdiction with respect to the regulations. I mean, we can't issue, I don't think anyway.
Correct, no, that is correct.
We can't issue a cease and, you know, the commission can issue a cease and desist order. So if there are zoning violations,
Be a town attorney type of an arrangement.
it
Exactly.
would be the zoning enforcement
Right,
officer
right.
who would, you know, find the zoning regulations and issue his cease and desist order. And then things march on from there. I mean, if the property owner complies, it's done. If the property owner does not comply, then the town can bring them to court.
Correct. We
And
would-
get a court order.
We would
to
further
support.
that enforcement action. under the supervision of the town attorney. It's sort of out of my hands at that point.
But right now, there's no application pending. Before, I think when you talked about getting everybody
Yeah,
together,
that initial meeting was to go over a site plan and what could be shown on that site plan, where both sides can kind of come out, you know, happier.
all right, we're gonna hear from the residents in a moment, but, I mean, if there were a site plan, if, for example, the issue were a matter of having sufficient trees, or other means of buffering the site from the residents, you know, that could be shown on a site plan.
That site plan would give us the jurisdiction to review and require those sorts of things.
But the applicant would have to come in with that
They
site
would,
plan.
we
and
can't
would
force
have to
anyone to submit an application.
Review it.
The purpose of the application is because the property owner at 217, Mike Clement, was hoping to shift his gas canopy to allow for easier access and egress of the property off of the road.
What was the application?
There
No,
were,
no,
no,
no.
this is all hypothetical.
Oh.
This is, he's
There's
getting it
just-
ready.
there's just
I've
talk
seen
of it.
drafts of it, but he has not submitted anything. But the purpose of this meeting was to get the input of the residents on that site plan and try to facilitate some sort of, you know, common ground there. Again, I was not there and just learned of this meeting last week. I guess there was supposed to be another meeting after that, and it didn't happen, so.
So if, under our regulations, you're not allowed to have abandoned motor vehicles, that's a blight condition, and you were to pursue this under a blight ordinance,
Yes, yep,
that's one avenue. But if we were concerned that an existing non-conforming use had been expanding, we as a board couldn't do anything until a site plan application was filed.
correct.
No, the zoning
Jack-
Well, yeah,
Jack.
right, we could,
Again, if there's a violation of the zoning that's his job.
That's his,
He's
okay.
a zoning enforcement officer, so if there's a violation of the zoning regulations, he investigates the issue, makes a decision on what he wants, you know, what he thinks is the right thing to do, and does it. And if the property owner thinks he's wrong, his redress is not to us, it's to the zoning board of appeals.
he can appeal.
So even in that scenario, my understanding is we have no jurisdiction to
That's correct, yes.
respond on that.
Someone wants to appeal my decision, we go to the ZBA, and the ZBA rules from there.
If the zoning enforcement officer feels that there are no zoning, I'm just hypothetical. If he feels there are and he does nothing, that's his right to make that decision, but, you know, the adjoining owners, to the extent they have standing, could bring the town to court, you know, and, you know, yeah,
Absolutely.
alleging that he's
Yeah.
not doing he's not doing.
If
what
I
he's-
put in, you know, if I were to put in writing, I don't see violations here, again, we're speaking hypotheticals. They can take me to the ZBA and say, we believe his interpretation of this situation is incorrect. It'd be just like if I gave someone a violation and they want to appeal that decision too.
But again, it's not our decision, I mean, as far as I can.
Correct.
I just,
the
I
way
think
read it.
correct.
historically, and you might remember, because we have the longest tenure here, say a resident like Mr. Frank Rogers would have violations through the years. Nothing current, everything is fine. But we would support Paul, or Paul would share, like, this is a problem, I want to do a cease and desist, and we would back him. Maybe it wasn't our legal right to do it, but we certainly gave support and direction.
Well,
Paul, I don't remember Paul Denise ever bringing this, did he
No,
bring this?
not this, I'm just saying,
Right.
in the
No,
past,
no,
we
I
have,
agree,
we have done
100%.
cease and desist orders.
Yeah.
As a commission, where we have supported them
we've never
philosophically.
done, no, I don't think so, I don't think we've ever issued a cease and
No,
desist.
we
Yeah,
don't
not
issue, but
issued.
we have supported the.
Going on the record
action.
of supporting
Like,
this
we-
decision
yes, we like-
of the zoning
Right, we've
official.
done that,
Yeah.
that's all I'm saying.
Sure,
So tonight, I want to hear what
absolutely,
people
yeah.
have to say about it, but just understand that, you know, this is not a public hearing.
Correct.
It's open to the public,
Public
but it's
meeting.
not a public hearing. And so, you know, notices didn't go out.
That's
It wasn't
correct.
noticed as a public hearing, and so I don't know, who's the owner of 217 again?
Mike Clement.
Is he here tonight?
No,
I
he's
mean,
not.
so, in all fairness, if it were an adversarial situation where we ultimately had to make a decision, I think it would be unfair that he's not, he didn't
Right,
have
he
notice.
should
he
get a
wouldn't get
rebuttal,
it.
like any
All right.
applicant would.
So, with that in mind, does somebody speak for the entire group, or I mean, whatever you want, but here's somebody who's gonna give us all the right information so we can make the right decision here.
Melanie Marie is going to speak also. So, for the record, my name is Michael Pop. I reside at 181 Omen Avenue in Orange, Connecticut, the great US of A. So I hope I could add, thank you for listening to us. So the problem started out with this. Were we in the right area? Were we talking to the right board? Were we talking to the right commission? And we've been getting a lot of different answers. Don't go here. You should be at a different office. So this didn't just start. So this started back in the summer of 2023, July. And so we had gone to Mr. Zioli. We have spoken with Jack a number of times. Mr. Marino has not been of any help whatsoever to us. He has basically, yes, there was a meeting between this group of people, and I speak not for myself. I speak for the 61 people on this list that signed this petition. So there's a number of people here that I'm going to give you this to. So
You said 16 or 61?
61,
Okay.
basically our whole neighborhood, aside from a handful of people that were afraid that there'd be retaliation and not good neighborly fashion going back to them. So, so we have been approached. The biggest problem is knowing we're in the right spot and getting some direction from this town, how we go forward with rectifying a problem that's been in our neighborhood since 1946, right? So they zoned, so this thing going back in this paperwork, this was grandfathered in, right? So that was a good thing. So it started out is let this gentleman keep his business open. When your car breaks down or your daughter's car breaks down, he's gonna tow it into our little repair shop. He's gonna fix the muffler that fell off or the flat tire. So the expansion has gone on year after year after year. They let him add a bigger piece to his repair shop. But that isn't the real problem here. The problem has been over the last few years, he has bought 3 other tow truck operations and put them all on this one facility. He went from having a tow truck to large wreckers that can tow large trucks, flatbeds. He's gone into 24/7-hour operation, taking in AA operations from anywhere around this area. So there are tow trucks coming in morning, noon, and night, in the middle of the night, backing up with lights and blinkers and beepers. And so he's getting AAA being delivered. He's got his other 4, I think it's 3 or 4 other tow operations, all under different name entities that are bringing vehicles in here. So there's probably 20 to 30 cars that are left there, smashed up for weeks and weeks. There's never a time where there's less than a dozen smashed up cars on this facility. So yeah.
Hold on just a second. So it's a legal, non-conforming use. It became that when the zoning regulations went into effect, right? So I would guess that we would measure from when the zoning regulations went into effect. How has the use changed? I don't know.
Well,
What do
I
you
don't
think?
know what documentation we would have.
So-
The 1990, what was it?
The
1991.
That might be when it starts. That's the only thing we have to measure against.
Well, it's objective. The 1991 would be an objective piece
I mean, it
Right.
became a non-conforming use
or much earlier,
when
whenever
the zoning regulations went into
Correct,
effect.
yep.
Right.
And I think that
So
was
that was,
46.
I think what Mike is saying is, there was one, the nature of the use was A then, and now it's B, and it's much more intense. Okay, I'm
The
sorry.
reason I wanted to be in front of this board is because this board is a continuation of a board that took them to court, which is on this legal document, the Town of Orange versus Mike Clemens. And there was an action taking place that put in a memorandum of decision, a permanent piece of record that went into this article. And this suit was filed, and this judge said that he shall not operate the way he's operating
All right.
today. So I would like to show that to you. And, so
I'd like
basically-
to have a copy.
I have a
we should all
copy
have
for
a
you. But I mean, at the end of the day, at the end of this thing, this is what it says.
All right. Okay. All right, again, I don't know what the, I'll read the last,
Yeah, we should-
You don't want to get,
yeah,
All of these, nothing got done,
all right.
time after time.
I mean, maybe, is this our copy?
Yes.
Maybe, Jack, you can make some copies of this for us, you know, we'll get them for next
This is
meeting.
just a couple other pieces of what he's been doing. But this, you know, this says that he should not store any vehicles on. Could you read it to them, just so they'll know what this, that says in this?
I won't, obviously, it's the last paragraph in a memorandum of decision.
Permanent.
Dated May 23, 1991, Town Plan and Zoning Commission versus Michael Clemens and Mike's Auto Repair, Inc., Judicial District of Ansonia, Milford at Milford. It says a permanent injunction is issued against the defendants from carrying on any auto body or fender repair work or painting operations, from receiving, storing, or repairing wrecked or junked motor vehicles, or any other automobile repair operations other than those allowed by prior variances granted by the Zoning Board of Appeals. The defendants are ordered to remove any motor vehicles not complying with the Orange zoning regulations, and this injunction within 15 days of this order. That's, I mean, again, I gotta study
understood.
this,
Yeah.
not now, but
Yeah.
to understand what it's all about. But again, it sounds like what the complaint is, what the concern is, that, this is, and I'm assuming this is a non-conforming use. I may be wrong about that.
no, you're
No,
correct.
and it's in a
Yeah.
residential
Well, I
zone.
mean, did the use
The use
predated the
oh,
zoning?
absolutely,
No
yeah.
question about
No
that?
question about it, yep.
All right. But it's a
that the-
reference to the zoning board of appeals.
Right.
There may have been
Variances.
variance requests or approvals from when the zoning regulations were established to when that was issued.
Yeah, we
They
have to
may
go
be
back.
referring to some other action in there, in the 50-year span.
But that lawsuit is brought by the town, this board,
Right. But
versus them.
But it sounds like they're issuing a permanent injunction to stop anything, to prevent them from doing anything there.
It wasn't anything, it was, the purpose was oil changes, tire rotation, supposed to be a minor service station as it was when it was
All right.
first
Well,
non-conforming.
that's what I don't know. I don't know.
So the expansion of what they've done from originally, even from when this originally was written, we have photos from 20, 25 years ago when there was a dozen or 2 dozen cars on the lot. There's over 60 lots on that plot of land right now. Probably 60. 60, right, cars. Let alone, and those are inclusive of his tow trucks and motor vehicles, and he's got backhoes and large plow vehicles for the state. He's plowing for the town, I imagine, or the state, but he's parking his trucks back there. He's leaving, motor vehicles just abandoned there for months on end, but he's expanded this non-conforming use hugely over the last few years by adding more facilities to his business of the towing operation. Our health and safety of our neighborhood and the children in the school in our neighborhood are being implemented because they have to use these side streets that they bring in and out with these motor vehicles. So, they've really encroached on our livelihoods of our neighborhood by, having detrimental issues in our area. So that's why I
I'm not-
wanted to bring it to this board.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure, and that's why we have a town attorney, but this is, 91, and this is 33 years ago. So I don't know what effect it still has, if it's still enforceable.
So if that is the scenario, right, so what
What's
does
that?
what does the board do today for this non-conforming use? If this is not an active piece of paper anymore, because it says permanent injunction, if it expires?
It's a question for
No,
the town attorney.
yeah, it is. It's a.
Well,
when
we
it
have
says
3
a
great
permanent-
attorneys sitting at this table.
Yeah, I know, but we're not here in that capacity.
Okay.
I'm not representing the,
Yeah.
I'm not sure it's a promotion, though.
Yeah. So if not, then we go in front of the Board of Appeals, or we go in front of
I
another
think-
board to ask what they put in place?
I think, I don't know. I mean,
So if I may, the ZBA will appeal a decision. So if there's a decision that I put on paper, I say, we're gonna, issue a violation. That violation can be appealed by whoever received that notice to the zoning board of appeals.
How do they get, so let's just stop for 1 second.
Yep.
How do they get from where they are if they have a complaint that the work there has expanded? The nonconformity
Yeah,
has
they
been
would bring
expanded.
that to the zoning enforcement official.
Right, and from that complaint, right, would be a response from you?
Correct.
Okay, keep going.
No, not a,
Well, then I think he
No,
has to
it would-
investigate.
yeah,
it.
There would be
it's
an investigation.
Yeah.
And then
He's gotta
based
do his
on,
research.
complaint's been made,
Yeah,
right, and
So-
then based on that investigation, we would take any action that we see fit.
not we.
We being myself and the town attorney, if I were to involve him.
You, with the town attorney's advice.
Correct, yes, yes, that's
Jack,
the
but
best
I've
way to
asked
put
you
it.
to file something against him, directly asked you why you haven't done so. And you told me that you can't do anything because it has no teeth when it comes from you.
That's
And you told me
not
that, and
correct,
you.
that's not correct, that's not what I
And you told me that
said.
you need
No, it's
the
not what I
backing
said.
up of the town attorney, so it makes no sense for you to write something
it's
up if you don't have the backing of the town attorney.
That's not what I said. I said I would like to bring the town attorney into this, being that I'm looking at a judgment from 1991.
Well, wait, Mike.
He
it
then
is-
responded to that, and his response was, I should not be enforcing that action because he advised me that it is now,
So how do we
It's
reel
fine,
in this
whatever.
operation?
But wait a minute, it's a complicated, it is, have
Absolutely.
complicated legal issues. And, Jack is charged with enforcing the zoning regulations, and he wants to make sure that whatever he does, he's on sound legal ground in doing it. So he should consult with the town attorney.
absolutely. This has also been less than, I think, 5 business days ago.
Yeah, so,
So,
I mean, I would suggest that that's the next step here, is that
But
I
we
would
started
agree.
this, Jack, back in July.
I-
2023, if you
I
look
mean,
at your email,
if
you'll see you were part of it.
I've received complaints, and like I said, I have talked to this property owner, and when I inspect, he does clean it up. Like I said, it's a Band-Aid on something that needs surgery. And then, once you guys came in last week and said, we really need to take a better look at this, I said, okay, let me sit down with the town attorney, and he gave me this advice, and also informed me of this meeting that happened in November of last year. I thought if I have two sides that are willing to sit down, and we're expecting another sit down, why don't we do that? We'll try to work together first.
The problem
don't have
becomes,
interest in
the
that,
problem
then-
becomes with this sit-down is, you've seen on that letter how many times we've asked him to sit down and do something. He said he's gonna do something every time, and nothing has been done, not once of them.
See,
So
I-
I'll leave it with that, but because we
No,
have
but
someone else
when I
that has
heard-
more to add to it.
when I heard this so-called sit-down, what I thought that was referring to was that Mr. Clemens needed to, do some renovations, I'll call it. I guess the law requires that he change out the tanks and from time
Right. To my knowledge, the only alteration of the site is the canopy, again,
Right,
to my
right.
knowledge.
So,
So-
to do that, he'd have to come before us. He'd have to give us a site plan that we could approve. And then we have the ability, when he brings in a site plan, to suggest modifications to the plan as a condition of our approval. So if it were a matter and I don't know whether this would satisfy everybody, but if it came to a matter of, improving the buffering, for
No.
example, then we could require that on the site plan as a condition to our approval.
That isn't what we're
But
looking
it's not-
for.
all right, but I'm
so-
learning that now.
Yeah, so
Right.
the
So
problem
am I.
is putting 30 cars that are all smashed up
All right.
leaking oil behind shrubs.
But so-
There's still 30 cars on a piece of property
I
leaking.
think it's
leaking-
accurate to say your concern is that he has greatly enlarged a non-conforming use.
Correct.
And that's the violation that the zoning enforcement officer needs to look into.
Being behind shrubs doesn't help.
Yeah, all right, well, I didn't know how big the problem was, so, until now.
So it would seem that Jack, independent of this board, has two complaints that are entwined but separate. One is that he should be investigating whether there has been an expansion of an existing non-conforming use. And two, whether the storage of abandoned wrecked automobiles on that site constitutes a blight as is defined under our ordinance, that he should do an investigation
And that-
and come to a conclusion.
Yes.
And
Yep.
that, you know, the wrecked cars, to the extent that he's, you know, keeping the cars on the property, it's not necessarily just a blight issue, but it could be an expansion of the non-conforming
Right,
use.
That's why I
That would
said
be
it's,
both,
they're
yeah.
two, but they're
You
connected.
know what I mean? So,
So if you're gonna do an investigation,
I mean, I could tell you right now,
Yeah.
you know, in my personal opinion, there are problems with this property that should be issued in a violation notice.
but we gotta
The
figure
reason-
out.
Right.
Exactly.
Again, and
Without-
I'm not the town attorneys but
Exactly.
we gotta figure out,
What I can and cannot
No.
enforce regarding that,
we gotta figure out what the non-conforming use was at the time it became a non-conforming use to determine the extent to which it's been enlarged.
Did you see
Correct.
this, Ozzy?
I didn't see.
And I'd like let Marie speak a little. She's got it.
All right.
Thank you. I hope I can add just a little bit to this. Once again, I'm sorry, Marie Allen from 814 Columbia Street. Our home is directly across the street of the back of Mike's Auto Body. Again, what I understand is a permanent injunction. The word permanent means something here in this decision. A permanent injunction is issued against the defendants from carrying on any auto body or fender repair work. So this started in 1946. I took some time and read about what had happened here. In 1946, apparently Orange started its zoning and planning commission. And when that happened, there was someone who owned this property and they were grandfathered in for light auto repairs. And if you read the beginning of the decision that Mike has shared with you, you'll see light auto repairs are defined as lubricants, tires, changing windshield wipers, minor auto repairs. It says nothing about creating a multi-enterprise towing operation on this property. And so I think that's why we're here. Things have happened slowly.
Yeah.
Things haven't happened overnight. Although I will say they have greatly intensified since July of 2023. And that intensification, although we are all trying to be good neighbors who support a business owner's need to make a profit and do his job, that has just been so expanded. And we met with Mike back in November in an effort to help him understand what was going on and our issues. We met with Mr. Marino, Attorney Marino. Attorney Marino had already spoken to Mike, actually held up plans about the fencing and the arboretum that would make it so that our neighbors would not have to see the vehicles. Again, as I said that night, that's lipstick on a pig. The issue is the amount of tow trucks greater than 10, the amount of vehicles. We counted and took pictures of 60. This is a I think 1.3 acre property. There's now talk, they have taken down all the trees from the Omen Avenue side of the property and are looking to extend, to put in additional parking for wrecked vehicles. My husband regularly picks up parts of the cars, the vehicles, and we put them in our garbage, because if not, the kids are going to get hurt and we're all going to have flat tires. This is the street, this is the emergency access street for Amity Junior High School. It is also at the U-turn on Route 34 for the Jewish Educational Center. And every morning that I go to work, I have to monitor the cars coming out of Mike's, the cars coming down Route 34, the car waiting to make the U-turn to get to the Jewish Educational Center to get out. There are children waiting for a bus. It's just a safety issue. It's a very clear safety issue. There was a time this past summer where Mike was doing painting in a paint garage inside this property. The fumes were so intense that I took my goddaughters back in the house because I was worried about what they were smelling. I don't believe painting and auto body was ever meant to be done at that property. I don't think he has the proper venting. There's no way that we should have smelt that the way that we did. There are regular, after 10 p.m., tow trucks that come in, wreckers, and when a wrecker backs up, it beeps, and it makes this large, loud beeping noise that goes right through the neighborhood, and we all wake up. I understand also, he's been broken into many times, of course not his issue. However, we wake up when those alarms go off. It has really become a nuisance much greater than when I moved in. When we moved in, I looked at the planning and zoning materials, and it said light auto repair, and I thought, well, how convenient. That's not what it is today. It's nowhere near that. This has been such an expansion of non-conforming use that we don't know what else to do but to come to the town. We're trying to do this in a neighborly way. Mike has thumbed his nose at every request. Occasionally, you're right, Jack, he'll clean up a couple of trucks. He even moved a dumpster. I think you saw that dumpster that was almost on Omen is now moved up in the property. That's wonderful. But now the cars are back, and he just bought another tow company. So this is not an issue of not wanting a neighborhood business. He has every right to make a living there. But it was never meant, when he purchased the property and went to the Better Business Bureau and received permission from the Secretary of State to buy this building, he knew it was light auto repair. This was not news. This was not something that he was tricked into. He bought something and now we're asking him to decrease his footprint. This was in statute. It's a permanent injunction. He knew the rules and said, I can do this and no one can stop me. And that's why we've had to come to you. Santo, I don't know if you want to add anything, but.
That is, that's very helpful. Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
Thanks for hearing us. Santo Galatioto, 170 Omen Avenue. The letter that I have dated here is July 19th, 23. It went to Vin Marino. Jim Zioli got a copy. Other people have gotten copies. My hat's off to my neighbors because they gave you a fair representation of what's occurred. But what we cited in this letter of concern to the town was, I apologize for being redundant. I'm just going to read this. Operation of a large towing operation using crash vehicles all hours of the day at night, making noise, etc. Operation of a snow removal operation with possible environmental issues. I'll get to that again. The paint shop. Damaged vehicle storage, creating an environmental hazard. Think of 30, 40, most recently 50 crashed vehicles. We're not making these numbers up because I walk by and I count. 50 crashed vehicles with the front ends missing, the back ends missing, gasoline, oil, transmission fluid, you name the fluid, it's leaching into the ground. We're an old neighborhood. Many people still have wells. Test driving of vehicles. They seem to think that our neighborhood is a test track. Now, I'm not saying they're speeding, but they're test driving their vehicles. Ever since COVID, we've become a very large walking neighborhood. Children, adults, older people. I'm not that old yet. Yes, I am. All right. Excessive lighting in the facilities. So now I'll talk about the difference between Mike and the difference between Rocco. Rocco operates the repair facility, which has been greatly expanded. So you go back to the little filling, I'm going to digress for a minute. You go back to the little filling station of 1941 or whatever in the 40s, and then the time of the injunction. It was a tree-filled site. There's some photos hanging out. Tree-filled site with this little filling station with a couple of pumps. That has now become a huge repair facility with 7 lifts. An illegal, and here again to be redundant, an illegal painting facility and repair facility, illegal. And you have all of the other things that you've heard about. It's been creep. Forget the 20 years, that court order's more than 20 years old. Forget that. It's been creep over this time. Paul Denise did not do his job. And I see that your heart's in the right place. And I understand that there's a tug of war that's going on between a favored son of Orange who has a business in town and other people in town, not many, that are supportive of this, and you're being put in a tough position. But I think you really have to look at what's existing and to not say, because we've been told this, well, it's there now, it's been there now, so you're stuck with it. That's what's sticking in our throats, all right?
That I'm pretty sure is not the law.
Well, but I'm telling you, that's what officials in this town have been telling us.
Yeah.
Well, there's nothing we can do about that. And the other thing I'll comment on, and I've got this secondhand, so please correct me if I'm wrong. He, in his plans, he now has 4 pumps, wants to expand it to 6 or 8 pumps. And I don't know the term that someone quoted you using.
That's gonna be what we did with that car wash, expansion versus intensification. So if that were to
Intensification.
come in, we would have to look at both of those again.
Right, so the intensification on a property that's overutilized, and at the juncture that Marie talked about, with the confluence of many sources of traffic, you're now going to intensify the activity at that site.
If that were his plan, he would have to come to us
Absolutely.
for a permit, and I think I could speak for everybody and say he would never get that. That sounds, to me, like an intensification of a non-conforming use that we.
Well, we have,
There's no
there's no
application,
plan,
right?
There's
there's
none.
not even
Yeah,
an
we're
application.
speaking
So,
in
yeah, we don't
hypotheticals.
wanna get ahead of it.
Oh,
Let's
okay.
deal with what we
We're
have
speaking in
today.
hypotheticals.
But it's not hypothetical. The town attorney's got the plans. You've had the plans. Other people in town, the first selectman has seen the plans. You folks haven't seen the plans, but it's not hypothetical. And we're getting feedback from people in the organization that in March is when they're going to begin the work. So they're going to knock down the house. Keep in mind, folks, this entire property is still a non-conforming, but it's zoned residential.
I was just gonna ask that question.
Is it residential?
I was
It's
gonna
residential.
confirm that. I assumed that it was
Sorry, what?
residential.
I looked at the map.
Yeah.
And I'll just recall one thing, and that is, I want to get back to Rocco versus Mike. Rocco is the guy that runs the maintenance facility. See, so Mike
Repair.
is not the proprietor of all these businesses. He's the lessor, right? So he's getting revenue from all of these sources with other people operating these operations.
To the best of your knowledge, he owns the property?
Oh, absolutely.
does, yes.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And he owns the majority of the towing operations. But Rocco, when we brought some lighting concerns and a dumpster concern, Rocco immediately made adjustments. We've been with Mike, not just this past July, this is not new. I've been in town for 40 years, and I still feel like I'm a newcomer. And we've been there when my mother-in-law was alive 20 years ago. We've met with Mike. We've met with him several times. And Mike will do a cleanup for, like Marie said, for a very short time. And then he just goes back to what he's doing. The cars in the neighborhood, all these things that I've cited. It's just a constant, repeat. So I reiterate, forget the 20 years. Let's look at today. Let's look at where we began and where we have crept to today. I'm trying to think if I left anything out, but you've heard from my neighbors about the impact that this has had on our neighborhood. Nobody's mentioned property values. Very difficult for me to quantify property values. I have an almost 3,000 square foot house. That's probably worth, in these days, maybe 500. Take that house and move it a half a mile, or move it away from that gas station, that house goes up $200,000. So, yeah, there are a lot of small houses in my neighborhood, but there are some large houses, the Abrams house, my house, and a couple of others. And I think our property values are greatly impacted because of that. So, my heart goes out to you folks. I was on a commission for a long time, and I know it's not fun. I just hope that you will allow us to participate in your investigation so we can point things out to you. We would like to partner with you.
I certainly can't say that. I obviously will take input from residents, but I can't sit here and say anyone's a partner in a town investigation.
No, that's
So,
fine. It's fine.
Yes.
Yeah, or in any action.
Right.
No.
Exactly.
Understand.
Obviously, your input is valued, and
All I'm
like to hear
saying
it,
is,
but-
we are resources that are willing to assist you in any way in your investigation.
Understood. Thank you very much.
And I thank you folks for listening.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Santo.
Can I just clarify something?
Sure.
We do have to have you on the record.
Very quickly, about the gas station. I'm Michelle Papa, Mike's wife, 181 Omen Avenue. And I just want to clarify the gas tank, the gas pump situation, because when they pulled out the plans, they talked about they were putting in 4 pumps, which is what we have evidence of in photos from 1990 and from 2000 and currently today. There are four cars can line up. He told us, Mike told us, that they were just turning the canopy. You're absolutely right with what you just said. Turning the canopy, and they were still going to have 4 pumps, except that it was 4 on each side now. So it was really 8 cars, because we kept questioning that and questioning that. 4 car, no. It's 8 cars, so it's 4 pumps, but they're double pumps. So now they're looking to do 8 cars instead of just the 4 that are currently there. So I just wanted to clarify that because they were not being totally forthcoming when they said it was still 4 pumps when we met with them. So I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
My final thought. I lost it and I came back. The reason why we're on this right now is because by regulation, Mike has to replace the tanks. So there's going to be a shutdown of the gas station. There's going to be major work being done there. And our fear, based upon Mike's past performance with us, is that he's going to do the deed and say, it's already done. So we want to head this off at the pass and have it looked at and ensure that he doesn't further expand the operation and then say, sorry, it's already done.
Okay, thank you. I think we get the picture. Does anybody have anything to add? It sounds like to me like it's been covered pretty well. All right, so, any comment or?
What do you think next steps would be?
Well, again,
I know it's not you.
I mean, nothing's gonna happen tonight, obviously. But I mean, you know, I think Jack, I think what everybody has had to say is very, very helpful, because he knows what he needs to look at.
I agree.
And
I think, and while some in the audience might not be thrilled to hear it, I have to consult my town attorney. That I have to do. What he tells me is my counsel. I'm going to bring him in on this, and I'm going to let him know that this has reached a head, and action needs to be taken, whether it is going to be an enforcement action by the town, or, you know, a site plan comes in that shows us a level of alteration, but I have to include him on this, and his word is what I'm gonna go for. I will let him know my opinions on the property and whether or not there are existing violations. I will be very clear about that. My recourse is going to be dependent on our conversation, but I have to sit down with him and let him know. And obviously, this discussion tonight and you guys coming in is gonna be a big part of that discussion.
And we, as members of the commission, can also speak to the town attorney.
Correct, of course. Yes, absolutely. I'm sorry, we can't have too much discussion without microphones being in front. But yes, I have been there, I'm very familiar with it. And like I said, I know the condition of the property, and that's not lost on me.
Can I just ask a question? So I'll come to the mic. Just questions now, just house cleaning. Do we need, would it be, Rich Scanlon, 815 Sheffield Road. I'm right on the corner, adjacent to the property. that we're talking about. Just, is there something we have to do officially for a complaint to a board in writing that we know that you guys got it, that you acknowledge that you received this request, and that we would get follow-up for your decisions that you might have with the attorney, that we would get some kind of formal feedback on how those conversations went? Is there
Absolutely.
something like that in place, or do we have
Right, so
to
this has already-
create something?
This is now, and especially tonight, this is on the record, it's recorded.
Okay.
So this is part of the correspondence.
Okay.
Absolutely, I would never tell someone not to memorialize their complaint and send me everything they want to say in an email. Absolutely. The more I have, the better.
Yep.
Like I said, it's still gonna be dependent on that conversation that I have with the town attorney.
Okay.
But of course, I'm happy to report back after that to, whoever would be interested.
And how would we get that information?
I would, as soon as I'm done, I would report back. You don't have to request me. I'm happy to reach out to you guys and let
So-
you know how that went.
Okay.
I can't give you an exact time frame of when him and I are gonna sit down. It's just something we're
But then,
do it now.
if it turns out, if his investigation leads him to conclude that a cease and desist order is appropriate,
Mm-hmm.
then you'll draft that.
draft it, issue it,
Town
and
attorney will review it and issue it.
of course, it's public record. Anyone could have a copy of that notice.
So we would then, what, go to the town website and the meeting?
You would reach out to me directly.
Just reach out
and
to you
say,
directly?
Have you had a chance to sit down with your town attorney yet? What was the result of that conversation?
And you would tell me verbally, or would there be
No,
something written down?
I would
Okay.
memorialize it in an
All right.
email, or verbally if you
All right.
if you call me too.
The other thing I can tell you is that we will put this on our agenda
Yes,
for future
exactly.
meetings.
Okay.
That's right.
So I'm not saying we'll necessarily discuss it every single meeting.
Yeah.
But Jack and I discuss the agenda on the Friday before our Tuesday meeting and decide what goes on the agenda.
Okay.
And I can tell you that every other meeting anyway, we'll put this on as a separate item.
Sure.
Just to get a status on it.
Absolutely.
So
All
that
right.
we're all paying attention to it.
All right.
Again, we don't have the power to issue a cease and desist order or anything, but that doesn't mean we can't pay attention to it.
Then the last thing I wanted to bring up is how it came to my attention. I found that there was talk about them taking down the house that was there. Well, so that's when I started like, and then all the neighbors reached out. But along the lines of that, if it's residential slash, the terminology you used, to be able to be used for a business, by taking down the house, by taking down the trees first off, taking down trees, making more apparent the Route 34, the house is gonna be gone, Route 34, more noise pollution, more light pollution, more room for trucks and businesses to encroach now where the house was. So before he takes down the house, if he learns that, hey, we can't do something, he might not decide, say, to take down the house. So I want to voice that that issue from my standpoint, being that corner house, that if he tears down the house and now it's just going to
Right.
be a wasteland.
So I've heard from a couple neighbors, about him removing the house. Obviously, there's not much we can do to stop someone from removing a house from the property. If they want to take it down, as long as they pull, the demo permits with the building department, they can do that.
Right.
There is, yeah, there's a residential house on the same property.
So just hypothetical to the commission, if the house gets demoed and more vehicles are parked there, would you consider that an expansion of non-conforming?
Well, that's something, we would have to look at that. I don't want to decide anything, obviously,
Right, no, just
Just
right.
taking down the house.
Right. That's some-
Taking down
that's
the house,
absolutely-
this is right.
Right, exactly.
Yes.
But if he
How he
enlarges
uses
the
that land
business,
is
the issue,
different.
yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I don't want to prejudge it, but
Exactly. I'm trying to avoid prejudgment here, but
Right.
how he uses that land that the house once took up would be subject to either
I think
an action
that-
or whatever it is.
Right.
Sounds like that's what.
But the use of the
trees.
land, yes, the use of the land would be the only thing we would possibly get involved on.
Right.
Just so you know, to clarify, that would be, in our opinion, an expansion that didn't exist before. Where the towing operation is now in the crash cars, that used to be all shrubs. That was never a place where vehicles were parked.
yeah. It sounds like you know, somebody used the word creep.
I did.
Yeah, you know, this has happened slowly over time. And it wasn't, maybe it was a little more difficult to know, not for the neighbors. I mean, you know, you noticed it every inch of the way, I'm sure. But, I don't know, I mean, I don't know what was, I can't know what was in Paul's mind, you know, but it sounds like something it's a situation that's progressed
head,
over
yeah. It's
time.
come to a head, yeah.
You know, so
Absolutely.
I think you sort of have to, still, again, I said it before, you have to go back in time to see what it was when the zoning regulations went into effect and what it is now.
Absolutely.
And it's got to go back to what it was, you know? But,
If it's proven that it's changed.
yeah,
Absolutely.
right.
So
All
I
right,
would
so,
look at the blight.
yeah,
Very quickly, if, I'll get up here. Jack, I know you said that you have to talk to the attorney, and absolutely, I mean, that's obvious, and we want him involved. But if he gives you the same answer of, we can't follow the permanent injunction because it's not permanent, where do we go from there?
So, just like if I were to issue an order and someone wants to appeal that, if I decide not to issue an order, you can appeal that decision as well. You could
Okay.
say, you know, we're gonna take you to the ZBA, the Zoning Board of Appeals. We're gonna say, Jack, we believe your interpretation of this situation to not issue an order is incorrect because of X, Y, and Z. And that board will decide on that just like they would, you know, a violator being appealed. I would obviously bring my attorney to that, because if he's gonna counsel me one way and I listen to it, you know, that's
Right.
one thing, but same process.
So if he does say that, you would enforce what he says, we're not doing anything, and then we would have to go
I
to
would
the appeals?
defer to my attorney's opinion,
But,
yes.
Okay.
but even if the attorney's opinion is that the particular injunction could only be enforced for 20 years, it's still evidence of a state of affairs in a period of time in an objective manner that he can hold up to what is there today and say, this has changed or this has not changed.
yeah, this is what it looked like then,
Right,
this is what it
so,
looks like
so it
now.
doesn't mean that's the end of the road as to whether or
Okay.
not, or, well, I mean, it's up to you to
Right,
decide,
right.
but.
And that also could mean, you know, again, the blight could be seen differently as the use expansion. He might say, you know, I don't think there's anything we could do on, again, hypotheticals here. Might not do anything on the use, but the blight is a very clear issue here. So it could be one of both, it could be neither, it could be a little bit of the two. So until I sit down with him and I say, listen, you know, here's my interpretation of the property as it sits today, based on what I can enforce and what is valid or not valid, we'll go from there.
Okay, because that was, Kevin, that's pretty much what you're saying, is even if the injunction did expire, which baffles me on permanent, but even if it did expire, our zoning laws haven't. So that's kind of where we were
Right. So it
caught.
could be a little mix of the two, like I said. yeah,
Okay.
Exactly.
Thank you.
So can we get put on the docket the next time and have Mike here
Well,
and Vinnie here?
no, 'cause,
No,
I don't, this is not that's what I got to the, you know, talking about the public hearing aspect of this thing. I mean, you know, that would require notice, and
That
that's,
still goes on in this board?
that's not what we do. What we do is respond to applications. You know, somebody applies for site plan approval or a special use
So
permit.
who does hear that part of it? That's, I guess, the question that I'm asking.
Myself, it would be the
The
zoning
zoning
enforcement
enforcement
official.
officer
And-
takes the first step. He does an investigation and he either issues a cease and desist order or he doesn't. If he does, then it's up to the person to whom it's directed to comply.
But what I'm confused with is this, is if he cannot have, if this paperwork and this.
So I'm
no
sorry,
matter what
we
it-
can't have discussion, yeah. We gotta have you come back up.
Michael Papa, 181 Omen Avenue. What I'm confused with is if this, all of this paperwork that we had handed to you and this court order is out the window, and I understand that, but, so whose call is it to say, it's not gonna fall just on Jack's order to say, whoa, he should not have 8 tow trucks or 20
It is.
tow trucks on
It
his
is.
property.
Mike, it is in the first instance. It's gonna be up to him to decide whether there's a violation of the zoning regulations.
And then it would go.
And this, as Kevin pointed out, this is, and again, I haven't even looked at it.
Yeah.
But it's evidence that there's, you know, it's, even if it's not enforceable as written, it's still evidence that there, you know, that the situation was one thing
In
40 years
1991.
ago, 50, whatever it is. It's different than what it is now. And that, and again, I don't want to put words in
No,
Jack's, but that would give him, I think, cause to believe that a cease and desist order would be appropriate, because there's been an expansion of a non-conforming use.
But then does it ever go back in front of the zoning? Or does it,
Not-
does it
not this
never, it
board,
never
not
goes
this-
back, and it goes in front of
This board
appeals?
has nothing to do about a zoning action like that.
Are you're assuming that he won't, if there is, again, hypothetically, if there's a cease and desist order, you can't assume that that he won't comply.
He's gonna laugh at it because there's 6
Well,
pieces of
then-
paperwork, okay?
Then it's up to the town, to bring an action in court to enforce the cease and desist order. And then he's faced not with just Jack's cease and desist order, but he could be faced with a court order along the lines of what you see here.
Okay. Okay, so then
And
we'll wait
then-
to see it
And
play
then
out.
if he doesn't comply with that, you know, then there are fines and penalties and, you know.
That the court would issue, right,
There's
yeah,
a-
yeah.
And I guess the hardest thing that I had is I gave you the highlights on that sheet there, but there's the actual documentation of what they told him, do not do this, and he continued to do it.
All right.
Do not do this, and he continued to do it. 6
Right.
times repeatedly. Don't take down all those shrubs, replace all of these shrubs that you took down,
Yeah.
you didn't do it. Do not park any more cars here, he parked more cars there. And
We-
and so that pattern leads me to believe that what we're trying to do here, by be good people and enforce our town rules, is not being fulfilled. So
Mike,
that- I
when
guess
you
that
say
was-
that he was told, you're saying that the zoning enforcement officer
Yes.
issued a letter to him?
Yes.
Saying, don't do this, and he did this?
Yes, 6
Okay.
times.
Okay.
Do we have that?
There were several letters issued by Paul Denise from 2000.
years.
Through the years, right.
Right.
Probably weren't followed up on.
6
Got it very
times that he continued. I don't think it is in that packet, though.
All right.
I have documented.
Right, you have got it all.
You
Okay.
yeah, so that's what leads me to say, no matter what we tell him to do, the board or the court order tells him not to do, he continues to do it.
Yeah.
And
that-
that's the
Yeah,
first
so that, listen, pretty clearly right now, and I just want to make it very black and white for you. Jack is going to talk to the town attorney, he's going to do his research, he's going to bring it to the town attorney, he's going to state his case and his opinion. Town attorney's going to weigh in on his opinions as well. Jack's going to follow the opinion of the town attorney. If the town attorney says, listen, this is not a violation, it's not an intensification, if it's not, you'll have the right to take that and appeal that decision to the ZBA, is that what you're
Correct,
saying?
yep.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
all right, and then you can take it from there. If they deny you, there may be other legal recourse, okay?
And it may not even be to the ZBA, it may be that they can bring an action against.
I've seen
Possibly.
that.
That-
Yeah,
that
I've
would
seen
be-
neighborhood
Well, that would be
groups.
separate. That would be
Demanding
separate.
that he
Through,
take that
through the
action.
town's avenues, the ZBA would be the next route.
Right, well, they
If
may
they-
wanna go to
If
If they
separate
were to decide to
counsel.
take separate, that's totally up to them.
Right.
It's not the first
Okay,
time.
so I don't wanna leave you with the idea that there's nothing else you can do, you're waiting for Jack to make the decision. Yeah, that is the next course of conduct. Jack's gonna do, and he's very diligent about it, he's gonna talk to Vinnie, they'll come up with an answer. It may not be something that you like, and you'll either be able to do something or do nothing, okay? If you do something, it could be done through the town, through the ZBA. It may be, you may have to hire private counsel, I don't know, that's up to you guys.
And this board will review what we've given you as far as what they were supposed to have there and not there, and give input to the attorney also? Is that-
During the appeals process, you can offer any documentation that you think.
No, right now.
No,
Oh,
Right
here, right now,
No,
oh.
this
I'm gonna-
board is this table. that
I'm
we
gonna
say-
read, I'm gonna read everything.
Yeah, and we are committed to reading everything. Some of us are very comfortable sharing our opinions with the town attorney.
Very good. That's what I was looking for. Thank you.
As well as the zoning enforcement officer.
Right.
Very good. Thank you.
That's a given.
All right, so
I'll let you get on with your business.
listen, that was all very, very helpful, because now I understand what the issue is. And again, all I can promise is that Jack will study the
Absolutely.
question, and he'll take the appropriate
Absolutely.
action, and that we will pay attention to what's going on with it.
Thank you.
So it won't,
will
60,
follow up,
so,
absolutely.
6
We will
months won't
follow
go
up.
by with nothing having happened.
Absolutely.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Thank you again.
Okay, the only other item on our agenda is a discussion of the, well, specifically, on the Plan of Conservation and Development, the request for proposal document. And, you know, we all received the request for proposal document that was used in 2013 when we requested proposals for our current Plan of Conservation and Development. Has everybody had a chance to look that over?
This was the same, I gave a copy of this last
Yep.
time too, but.
So some sections are obsolete, in
Yeah.
my estimation, and some dates need to be changed.
Right, you're gonna have, you know, dates and little things like that that need to be changed, but substantively, I would love to maybe workshop it, hear what you guys, you know, wanna get rid of, maybe would like to add. If we wanna make one item a little more important and focused on than another, I'm all ears.
I don't have that much to add right at the moment. The only thing I noticed was the reference to the Edison Road, Marshall Road Corridor zoning review study, which I think has already been accomplished.
Yeah,
The
that could
road
probably be
exists.
removed,
Yeah, so
yeah.
that could be removed.
So I don't know that that needs to be in it. You know, as
Um,
Judy points out, dates and.
Yeah, the date, so, services, section A,
Yes,
you
yep,
talk about
I
the
marked those down as
population,
well.
yeah,
Yep.
so we just want to update those dates. I had it at
25, 30, 35,
five.
yep.
Perfect.
I think all of the other numbers in here, like PA 490, that, those still exist. We're still in conformance with section 8-23, that's what is requiring us to make this change. But I'll still do, obviously, a once-over, make sure we have all those little items. you
Yeah,
know,
I'm not,
but-
even section C, traffic management assessment, that almost seems outdated. I mean, that got the suicide lane on Route 1. You know, Marshall Road, South Lambert, I mean, Paul?
No,
I'm not sure you want to remove that quite yet. We may want to add a few more suicide lanes.
Maybe what we could do is, we could keep C as a whole, but
Right, but
maybe
not-
we don't
but
need
get
these
rid of the
specific
specifics.
items, because
Right.
they've already kind of been there.
Right.
But I think traffic management assessment, I think is important to
Yep,
keep in there, just
yep,
as a
the concept.
overall, yeah.
Yeah, and as we saw, the affordable housing reg per se could use an update.
You mean
The affordable housing regulation,
To-
the
to-
PRD.
oh, the PRDs, yeah, yep, okay. Impact of PRD development, that might fall under item 1. Need to reexamine the standards and requirements of the PRD, existing future PRD development and state statutes.
Right, because the state has changed statutes. since-
Right, so maybe I mean,
Well, it
that
says
looks,
it
yeah,
says
that looks
need
good
to
as it is,
re-examine,
yeah.
so Sounds like you got
Yeah,
it.
why was the stormwater concern? Is
Yeah,
that
I had a question mark on that.
The need
Was
for
that
plan
something
and-
historically that's been a problem, or is it an ongoing problem that I just live on a hill and don't know about?
That's a good question. I mean, I actually will say, not so much on the commercial side of things,
The
but
residential.
residential with the high volume rain events that
A
we've been
lot of
getting, just the
flooding.
amount of water.
Right.
A lot of people have been getting flooded. I get calls all the time about people saying, why do I have water in my basement? I've lived here 30 years and I've never had it. I think it's a multitude of things.
No, I'm sorry.
You know, me and the health department kind of go back about this, you know, what could have changed. But I also think it's the level of development too. We're seeing these people building on residential lots that weren't built on 100 years ago for a reason. And it's because a lot of the drainage, you know, is pointed in that area, or you have neighborhoods that have been developed for 100 years in one lot that never was for a reason. Today's code, developers are finding out ways to build on those lots. And suddenly, where everyone was sending their water has a house there now. Creates problems, you know, upstream for everyone else in the area. So I have been getting a lot of issues with the stormwater runoff in the residential zone, so much to the point that the town has actually retained an engineer in 3 different locations.
And
Yes,
But-
yeah.
When we select the person who's going to be the consultant, we have to make sure that we have enough in the budget. If he's going to have to consult, or she's going to have to consult with another aspect of the professionals, I'm thinking engineers or
Right.
something. Because, I mean, we're asking them, that's a pretty big undertaking, it sounds like to me.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all over I mean, you have 3 specific areas in town, I didn't even know about that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
one of them's the
Yeah.
other's Pine Tree, and I think one is by, I always forget the name of this road. It's off of, Treat, or, besides the point.
Old Country, I think.
Old Country, yeah, thank you, Tom. We have culverts that are being replaced, I think, in all 3 of those locations, because the volume of water is just higher than they're rated to handle.
You know, maybe we can phrase that, what do we say, the need to reassess our plan? Or
The need to reassess.
or review our, review current plan and policy for addressing stormwater. And you might even reference the 3 locations that you're concerned about
Yeah.
specifically.
Okay.
You know?
Plans and policies for addressing.
Like study of watershed reexamination, story, especially as it relates to.
The residential
the fo-
area.
no, The following locations.
Gotcha, yep.
That kind of thing.
And I know they have, the engineer that we retained to do that work has done a lot of that legwork anyways, so we could probably get them to coordinate with each other.
Okay.
I just wanted to make sure from a budgeting standpoint that they knew that it was going to be something more than just a consultant, potentially.
All right. Anything else for Jack? Because what I thought was that maybe between now and the next meeting, Jack could maybe do a red line for us. Of these changes, any other changes he.
I could definitely put something
And then
together.
hopefully we'll be in a position to say, well, let's just go ahead with this.
Right.
It worked in 2013, I don't see any reason why it won't work again with a few modifications. I don't see any reason to reinvent the wheel here and start.
No, but I would look forward to presentations from people to sort of see their approach, because
Right.
I found that to be a very interesting comment from Glenn.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
That you can, everyone's baking their cake a little differently, but.
Yeah, I don't think we have much choice on that anyway. It's part of the process. We gotta
Right.
interview at least a few.
Absolutely.
You're responsible for, what's the timeline that you have to put this RFP in?
I mean, we're not under a timeline to post it. I think Glenn said you want to do it around March, and then by May, you're hearing the presentations.
Right, and
But
he
it gets
had a-
posted for a couple, maybe 2
Right, and he had a
months.
particular place that you posted?
Yeah, it was OPM. I think our regional planning authority, SCROG, will post it on their website as well. Obviously, we post it on our own website.
I wrote it down, yeah, I
Okay,
have it.
and he's very good, so if I were to reach out to Glenn and say, hey, where would I put, I'm sure I already have, actually, probably have an email with it on there.
All right, so that should be, if we shoot to have, a red line of this thing on our next meeting,
I think that should work, yeah.
then we could, move forward then and be ahead, or at least on track.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we have too many changes to make, so.
All right, and as far as the Derby Avenue thing, do you have these things that they,
I do, yeah.
You sure you have all of it?
If you wanna,
well, I was thinking you could.
if you'd like, I can make a copy
make
of those before
copies
we
and
leave.
send them to everybody.
Sure, or yeah, I could scan them and send them to
Scan 'em
everyone,
and
absolutely.
Scan them and
yeah.
email them,
Yep, I can do that.
so we can,
We all go to bed in 10 minutes.
Got it, absolutely, no, I can do that for sure.
and let's do that, let's commit to
Absolutely.
every other meeting,
On old business.
yeah, make a special note of that, on future
Sure.
agendas, so that we,
We balance competing, I don't want to say interests. It's expectations, between different people all the time. And I think it was very useful to hear and listen. It wasn't a reflection on thinking that you weren't doing what you were supposed to do, obviously.
Yeah.
But people don't know what the process is.
right.
No, we don't think he does, but sheesh, come on, you're on the air. But, people don't always know
Right.
what's the
The
path.
avenue, right.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
all right, I'm glad we got that.
Yep.
That, I think, gave you a lot to,
Got some homework.
to work with. All right, that's it. We have,
Move to adjourn.
do we have a second? It's been seconded. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.